Right, Steve. Yes, so Dean's not here. Dean, I thought I saw some. Simon, John. Simon. Right, it's only a workshop. We'll roll into it. We'll take it on. Move. Dean and Councillor McCroskey and Councillor Martin as probably lateness at the moment, but they haven't heard of an apology. Yeah, right. And just so that everyone knows, we're live streaming. Welcome, everyone. Welcome, staff. Huge day in front of us, as you know. Burning the midnight oil to try and read all of this last night. That's good. We're going to the first ups. I'll just go over to you, Steve, I think.
Thanks, Your Worship. Not much to say. The agenda there, Peter and team is running that, and we'll just move straight into it. You'll see there's an item's been deferred, but otherwise we will carry on. It's on your agenda.
No, I just realised the future for local government. That's all right.
And obviously we've just got that we're closing early for the briefing for other.
Okay, so if everyone can please, if we just go to the first item, I'll hand over to Pete for significance and engagement policy.
Through you, Your Worship, Olivia will
Use your paperwork.
Go ahead, everyone. So first item is significance and engagement policy. And generally speaking, there has been very little change from the previous version to the last time that this was considered. In essence, the intent of significance engagement policy is to outline the Council's general approach to determining the significance of proposals and decisions. This can give greater clarity and certainty to the community about how and when it can expect to be engaged in, or specifically consulted on decisions about issues, proposals, assets, decisions, and activities. So I will take the report as read, and through the chair, I'm open to any questions about the report, please.
Questions, team? It's a half a question comment. I noticed there was quite a bit of reference to the staff will make the final decision on what sort of engagement kicks in. And yet, to me, when we get caught up on our engagement, it instantly becomes political. I take Taylor Park, under the radar in our face. No steps in between. So I'd like us to at least consider what political input would go into the final analysis for engagement, because our priorities are different than organisation.
Through you, Your Worship, if I may. That's actually, there should have been another comment to say that on the meeting of the 25th of January, the overall consultation plan will be brought forward to Council together with the consultation document, and that'll be an opportunity to look at it and use at that time.
No, I don't mean the specific document. I mean per se on engagement. It's got down here council staff decide if and how council will engage with the community on a case by case basis. Yes, sure, I expect staff from an operational level, but I do want some political overview to it, because when we get into troubles, as soon as the engagement goes wrong, it's the political that wears it in the face, and our perception of it is different from the organisations. I'm not saying we're taking over. I'm saying that we're holding hands.
You, Your Worship, totally agree. But that's that document that covers all things, but for the specific of the consultation document, that's what is basically listed for a meeting on the 25th of January.
Yeah.
For you to do that.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, just to follow up, that's a good point, Your Worship, but if we're talking about 2.3.4,
I'm talking about, well, there was 2.1, it was referred in 3 different places.
Because if we look at 2.3.4, which talks about staff, it talks about other non-significant matters. So, I mean, there's always going to be a subjective discussion about that side of things, because otherwise you're saying, well, everything decision we do goes to council or to elected members. And so we have to be relative around some of those points. And so, you know, if you take Taylor Park, for example, the question around, you know, whether or not an operational decision about a campground suddenly becomes a problem. You know, was that to be known beforehand? And moving forward, the whole point of the reserve management plan process for Taylor Park is so that there's clarity around that, so that things become operational as opposed to, you know, a big consultation issue. So that's the point. You can say you know, things are political, yes, but there's always got to be a subjective discussion around that aspect, and all that's being said about that is non-significant. And look, because we get the first go at it, you know, like staff receive information to make calls on how all this students engagement policy is applied. It is possible that staff might make mistakes in that subjective first assessment, but the intention isn't to override the political arm. It's to go through the lines of it and say, with known information, you know, does it trigger these things such that we should be elevated?
Yeah, I've read right through it. I know it. But what I'm saying is it's not working right at the moment. It's the political that's wearing it, and I want some political oversight. It's holding hands instead of. I don't think it's a big issue for all the engagement we do. I need to point: is that significant or not? Even if it was just the mayor that's there on the day or something, as long as there's political oversight. Alex.
Probably my concern is that we're looking at this first, and some of the asset management plans that kind of tie into this, whether it be the library, the hall, everything, do tie into this. And when I read them, I mean, so I'm going a step ahead. Some of them are that outdated, and I think need a little bit of tweaking. So we're going to look at approving this significance and engagement policy, but some of the asset management plans that tie into what's being laid out here is being discussed later. So, and with the 5 minute thing, which some of them I think need greater discussion than that. So I'm just worried that we're being basically asked to tick the box quickly, when I think in some places there needs to be some good discussion. It's just my comment.
So, I think reading last night, I certainly looked at there was libraries that triggered me for sure, and consequently, if it takes time, it takes time, and if we run out of time, then it bowls on over. But we're going to do it right.
So we're basically going to pass this before we discuss some of the other stuff. Like
so we're not making a decision. So I get what you mean, and I wouldn't like to slam down the decision if we're not. So
through the chair as well. So this is a policy for significance engagement about how we undertake to do any sort of engagement with the community. So it's not actually agreeing to any of the strategic assets or asset management plan side of things. It's more of an overall view of how council approaches situations in terms of engagement.
So specifically on the engagement, what's everyone's thoughts? Comfortable with the layers and what triggers the engagements with the priority list? Stop. Bruce.
Yeah, no, I'm comfortable with that, and I think this is an overarching policy, and we should be looking at it first rather than the asset management plans and such like, because it sits over the top of everything. Then when we're developing the asset management plans, then we make the decision as to what level of consultation has to go into those according to what the policy says. And I'm comfortable with the policy. I think it's worked in the past. I don't think it's fit for purpose, and it's possibly the political arm that has slipped up. The likes of Taylor Park, we should have been triggered. We should have triggered the identified the significance of the decisions we were making then and applied the policy in accordance with that, rather than the policy itself being involved. My take on it.
Well, I don't want to focus on the one issue. I do know that it never came across with our face. candidates.
Your worship, I think we discussed whether we would proceed with using corrections to do cabins before we actually said yes to corrections doing cabins. So there were aspects of, you know, the matter that was raised where we didn't get it right was the public interest in that side of it.
Yeah, most definitely, and as I said, I won't get fixated on Taylor Park. There are issues of it that we were well aware of. I must say that the issues that were coming to public and the steaming up public, I wasn't aware of it. It was well in our face. Consequently, I'm looking quite closely at what we're discussing at the moment. Anyone else got any comment?
I think it reads well. It's really good. I'm happy with it.
So, directive, does anyone have, you know, I've expressed my concern about political input into the triggering points, which is really just a discussion that can be had on any, I don't see it as a big issue. Does anyone else have any points, or I'm just going to roll it, Councillor Barrett?
If what you suggested is being incorporated, I'd agree with that being a good thing.
Thank you. Yeah. Are you, Olivia, are you okay? Do you realise what we're meaning? Not a big palaver of a process, but if there's something coming along, at least put it across our radar.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah, it doesn't.
I know.
It doesn't change the wording. You're not suggesting a wording change. I just want to be careful of expectations, Your Worship, with councillors. The policy is the policy. There might be an issue around how the policy is to be applied. Okay.
Yeah.
That's not written anywhere.
No.
That's a different thing. So happy around any subsequent discussions around expectations about.
I'm not changing any word on the policy, but I'm just making it clear that at the moment there is a friction between the public and us, and consequently there's going to be greater scrutiny on our part. Political arms got lifted.
I'm just mindful, Your Worship, that it's still a living document until we get it to the point of adoption, isn't it? So we can still come back and talk to Peter, team, and Steve, and whatever else. So I'm thinking myself that once I go away, I'll think of something. I wish I said that today. So
We're pouring the concrete today.
yeah.
When we get back in February, we tend to find that it's dry.
Set.
Set hard. Right, team. If there's no more questions, or there's no more, have you got the direction and you're happy? Sweet.
Yeah, thank you.
Done. Next one is the strategic framework. Peter.
Thank you, Your Worship. I might open this up. There's three elements to this, and the first element is the living and working inclusive strategy. The purpose of conversation at this point is to review, provide direction on the revised living and working strategy with it, and for the LTP, to inform the LTP going forward. The living and working strategy has a number of elements. I think we're all familiar with it. I don't think I need to elaborate. So moving on, what I've done here, to avoid having lots of slides on this, I'm hoping you've got your documents from the that were circulated there, but there's basically been some modifications really to update the living and working strategy. And there's sort of been highlighted in your agenda papers. And I just need to ask, is everybody comfortable talking to their papers that were circulated? And I'll just find mine. Yeah. Thank you. Sorry, I'm moving.
You might find it in the AMP.
Thanks a lot. So I suppose I might just go through this page by page and through you, Your Worship, ask if there are any. So the first page is the investment in infrastructure strategy. You can see there's been significant changes in relation to text talking about what we've been doing with relation to the infrastructure plan.
So do you want us specifically to comment on page 20 and then we go to 21, or do we wait to the end?
I think we'll do it as we go through, but
Okay, team, so if we, and welcome, Councillor McCoskey. If we go to page 20, questions, so we'll just keep it snappy, and on 20, I do have one question. And third box, number 4, keep rate supportability at the forefront of our actions and decisions and work to keep rate increases at a low level. In the environment we're in, we're probably going to rub up against that.
I had exactly the same point here, Brian, and I was thinking it's, maybe an indication of bang for buck, because we all know we can't. That's right.
So how is it a guiding principle or a hard line on the sand? I wouldn't like to see the words there if we know it ourselves, but it's those. There isn't an ability at the moment that I see to keep the rates rises at a low level, and yet we're stating that, Councillor McAdam.
If you just shorten up that sentence and finish it with word decisions, keep rate supportability at the forefront of our actions and decisions.
I agree.
Always. We have to do that, Pete? Anything else, Tim?
Unless one that really agrees with.
Is there a counter to that? I just think that reality's kicking in a little bit too much for that. I have those words hand on heart.
Rate supportability should always be.
Forefront of the actions and decisions. Okay, technical issues, Councillor McCoskey?
No, just kidding.
The day Gainer comes in to help you, I know you're in trouble. Are we there? Done. So is there anything else on page 20 before we hit 21? 21, Pete.
okay. Next section is quality housing, noting that this is an overarching strategy and will inform the housing amp later. I'll leave it to you, Your Worship, to call for comments on that.
I think the point was we just updated things, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Peter.
I read it, I was happy with it. What's everyone else's thoughts? We hit page 22.
Filling our jobs, minor amendments as noted.
Everyone happy? Page 23, the only one I had, and I don't know where we stand with it, is Te Mana Atawai. The principles of Te Mana Atawai being interwoven into everything we do, and yet the 100 days, won't even comment on what I think. Look, the 100 days has taken Te Mana Atawai out of it, hasn't not?
Yes.
So consequently, would that be at a, we're saying that we have to do it and you don't have to. I'm quite happy to do it.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think it still needs to be left in though, doesn't it?
Well, I don't know whether the government directive is that that's all gone. I don't actually know what it means for them taking Te Mana Atawai out of whatever. Because there it is. So I'm just asking, it's the first time that I've seen it after the election.
So through you, Your Worship. There's two aspects to it. One is what central government decides will inform legislative frameworks, be they in or out, and the second is what council chooses to aspire to in terms of the concept.
From my perspective, I'd certainly like Te Mana Atawai aspirations to remain.
If it is to remain, it's a direct conflict against rate supportability. In many cases.
I think Your Worship, I think we're stuck a little bit.
Would vote.
ORC, professional thing.
We're stuck with a little bit at the moment because the way the hierarchy works everything hinges around the priority being given to the health and well-being of the water bodies. Everything hinges, right? So legislation hinges, regional council responsibilities hinge, flowing back to our responsibilities, where we're heading on infrastructure. Everything's hinging on that side of things. And currently that doesn't change, because currently that's still there. And we're not actually sure to what degree Te Mano Te Wai will or won't be, as opposed to other decisions that government might make that bring in other other options. So the whole problem we've got is that what's the basis around which you put your infrastructure strategy, and that at the moment we're writing it with current legislation in place, right? Because it's the whole thing. If we were going down a different pathway, you might say, and you might forecast and say, oh goodness, we don't have to do disposal of land anymore, or whatever, right? Well, that's a big difference and all that. But how do you forecast that today? You can't, because there isn't that information. That's the predicament we're in. And I think and there will be amendments, like if legislation changes, they tell us things are changing as a consequence. AMPs change, strategies change, there's all consequential changes. So I think we just got to be careful. We focus on, this is just my suggestion, we focus on what the current legislation is, how it is, understand that if things change with the government, then we need to absolutely go through everything we've got and re-look at it. Result. It's easier that way.
So, and I haven't looked into it deeply. All I was told was that Te Mano Te Wai was in the 100 days it was out. So consequently, if the government's announced that it's out, does that take it out?
No,
It's still in the legislation, and yet they've said that it's out.
well, I think that's. I mean, Te Mano Te Wai is a founding principle that has been built into legislation across the board, and so it's not going to be as simple as that to remove it. And I'm sure there's going to be debate around what that means and how that's applied. And the government can do many things without necessarily removing Te Mano Te Wai. But our problem is we go back to the basics, is that we are still stuck with the existing rules.
Simon.
Yeah, it's actually not quite in it's all, the regional councils have been directed, they've coded in all their freshwater plans, and all the councils around the country are in the process of doing those plans or updating those plans. So it's not actually written into current rules, it's only a concept we've got to work towards at the moment. It's not actually there.
Isn't it?
It's there, but it's not actually written. It's not that those freshwater plans haven't been formally.
It is still on the national policy statement.
It is, but the council,
Management.
yeah, but that directs the council. The council has still been in the process of writing it.
I can guarantee you, through your worship, that consent decisions being imposed upon us, and which we are also required to write, have that reflected. So, there's no doubt it's in the framework.
Yeah, but it hasn't been clarified. See, the regional councils have been, well, they're in limbo at the moment, especially the LRC, who are busy writing the land and water plan, and suddenly this has been thrown, and so they're stuck there.
Why have we got short-term consents for a lot of our water takes, for example, is because of those principles. They're in place.
Our last 3 wastewater consents too were short term, exactly for that reason. So they're timed, so that plan is in place. And when we do our next consent renewals, we'll have to take all whatever ends up in that.
Yeah.
So the points in there, the whole one, we only got 7 years for, and for our fleet, we've got 9 years. So they're timed, so hopefully all those rules are in place, we know what we're doing for those upgrades going forward, and there's clarity.
Yeah.
And part of that debate, especially with Waihoa, was we wanted to get it out of the wetting, but it was, well, we can't do that for a 7-year consent, but it's got to be a longer term investment for a longer term consent. That's why it was only for a short period, and then with those rules clarified.
So for the purposes of today, Te Mano Te Wai stays up.
For the purpose of today, the statement would be correct.
Anyone else have any comments, consideration? We're moving on to 24, please. Jump.
Chair.
Mhm.
Your worship, just ask for comments.
We'll just roll through. If there's none on 24, I'm looking at 25. Everyone's a static beat. Even for 26. That was the only comments I had. Did anyone else have anything on it?
Right.
Looking good. Can I just check, team? I'm seeing a lot of faces very focused on the screens. Is everyone up with the play?
Can I just make a comment on page 26? How we intend to get there, promote and support heritage, and you've got Te Paumata, which is fine, but and then you've got / Clutha Community Hub, but it's actually not called Clutha Community Hub, and I think that should come out.
Yeah.
That's not how it's to be referred to.
What was the?
They shorten it to Tacoma.
No, but then it was Belcluta. No,
It's got the
War Memorial.
War Memorial, so it could be that, but I would probably that would be to have the other name, but definitely not Clutha Community Hub.
you understand.
Okay.
Anything else, Tim? Okay.
So, the next part, what we've done with our strategic framework is incorporated elements of our work programs in order to inform the community that our strategic framework is a matrix of matters that council have on the books. One of the ones that we thought was useful to articulate in our long-term plan would be our Place Community Plan program. I might ask Mike if he would come and be available to talk to this. Essentially, in answer to any questions in the paper, essentially we've got basically a summary of what we're doing and to inform the community and our long-term plan. And that will then help integrate with other activities that are going on. The usual worship. Any questions?
Welcome, Mike. So Mike's only there for questions. Questions, team, for either Peter or Mike? Nope.
So just make a note that at the moment, the plan, the worship council is just one more to do, isn't it, Mike?
That's great.
Yeah.
For the summer.
Question then, we've done plans, and the Bruce Wood have done plans for Milton, Waiholra, and now we're doing Tauromouth, but there's still the rest of the rural area which we don't have a now place plan for. Or a reserve management plan either. So I feel that's a bit of a gap and a significant part of that district.
I think are we covering the Bruce Reserve Management?
Well, the reserve management plan side of it is a separate.
Yeah.
Well, it follows in behind, so that's a little bit exciting. But in terms of community plans, you're right, I guess, when that process started, they were focused on towns, and Milton up with Waiholra, etc. But then as we sort of got into the more rural areas, that more tended to morph into a ward-based approach. So lots to pick etc. So yeah, you're right. I guess there's potentially two, Clutha, Milton, or Bruce wards, where they're not necessarily completely included within a plan, but
Can I'll say for Belcluta. I know that the Belcluta input, there was no demarcation line between urban and rural, it was the wider community and I hadn't seen that it was going to now be that demarcation line put in. It's like 2 weeks of the Chair. So, well, it's specifically Milton Ward councillors. When I haven't, I don't know, I can remember rural ones that having comments on Milton and Waihola.
They have commented certainly on the townships, but it's the wider district. I mean, we've got Bruce Ward. It's the largest area of the district, but we've got little communities like Lovell's Flat, one end up to Sinclair Woodlands areas, Berwick area in our ward as well, which really haven't really talked to those communities. They're very small, dispersed, but that's we haven't talked to them. I don't know if I don't think it's an urgency to do that, but I think it should be perhaps programmed here. We can't afford to leave out any parts of our district. So.
Well, I'll flip the other way. I'll go to Balclutha Ward. I, as a resident as such, local, rural, urban, there wasn't a demarcation line there, and for me, the focus is let's just get the blooming things done.
Yeah, but when we're talking about Milton, likes of people at Berwick, they would feel included in that. Even at the back of Lake Waihola, there was quite a reasonable subdivision now it's happening. They would have been involved or felt that Milton itself was part of what they would have talked about. So I think it's just something to be aware of. It has to be perhaps picked up over the term of this next long-term plan at some stage.
That is an mission. I think that's fair comment, most definitely.
There's even some people at Lovell's Flat might have to say too.
I just want to run Ben Waira, Warrapar. We've got a lot of people. I would have said that they were included in the various ones. I'm hesitant, Bruce, because the staff are already stretched to deliver on each area. I was now demarcating between.
I understand there's issues of resourcing, but I think it's just something that we have to be aware of as a council. Poco Mount's another community as well. So,
Councillor Lynn.
I don't think we have a week to be a bit careful here, because we have done every township which the rural areas come into, and if we start doing that area, you're going to open up a can of worms for every other area in the district to say that I think all the communities have been well consulted and able to. That you've had your Waihola, I wouldn't be in favour of it, sorry. The resourcing and everything else. I think you want to revisit in 5 years' time or something, but honestly, let's work with what we've got identified here at this stage, and that might be a discussion for another council.
I mean, before questions, Your Worship, I could suggest that we're going to need to do reviews anyway. The thought of when we first started community plans, it was a new thing. We hit the main towns. I'm pretty sure we focused on the main town and not the surrounds when we were doing it. I know we could look at it now and say it's all encompassing, but when we first started it, it was a new thing. We were looking at specific things. But they are coming up for review, Your Worship, and councillors, right? So Balclutha and Milton were done in 2017. We're talking 2024 onwards. So it's actually quite a period of time. And when we finish Torrey Mouth, we do have to, within this long-term plan, we should be considering reviewing those plans. And when we review the plans, with those ones being first, it makes sense to think about the wider picture of ensuring that we get, full community involvement in that, because we haven't touched those ones. But that's one way of doing it, rather than creating a separate plan. We might look at that wider geographic and say, how would we do that? We're picking up elements, and I can guarantee you that we are talking now about making sure it's really important the reserve plans side of things, reserve management plans are covered because there's reserves in those areas. And they by law need to be done. So we are working to do that. And it might be nice for a change to actually get the reserve management plans done in conjunction or in advance of the community plans rather than the other way around.
Yes.
And that. So that's just my suggestion, is that we, if we haven't already, and I can't remember seeing in here, but I think we were talking about, we should be saying within the 10 years that actually the intention is to review the community plans, starting from the older. And in my idea is, my definition of review would be to include the communities of interest that are in the greater areas that relate to it, to give those people opportunity.
Councillor Clark.
Thanks, Your Worship. Thanks, Steve. That's pretty much exactly what I was going to say. You say it far more eloquent than I would ever do. I think it's a fair cop, and we're now looking into the future. And how can we do it? Simple as that.
I know when I went up to West Otago, when I went to Lawrence, when I went to everywhere, I must certainly consider it rural. It wasn't a line, it was everyone. And I'm surprised now that we're now going to put that line down. Because when we went to West Otago, John, did you ever consider that we're only doing the town? And
No, absolutely not. Look, I think from memory, there's 12 or 13 consultation meetings and stuff. So we staff and really, you know, collectively did a fantastic job. When you actually look at that list though, and the way it's even worded, go through the middle of the whole, then it says Captain's Ward.
Yeah.
You know, let's take a ward, it actually says the ward. Yeah. The first three are the counts. Just the way that's, but no, look, West Otago, we had a fan, look, it was perfect. And that was actually one of the winning parts of going to live later on, is all the Kingsfield on, yeah.
right, Dave.
Yeah, through you. Yeah, so that comment I just picked up was about Tokyo Mouth or something. I'm just wondering if Tokyo should be coastal fiery coming up now. As I'm getting in this, you know, there's that little comment there, and just what John said. Catlins Ward, there was great consultation. It got into New Haven, it got into Jacks Bay, got into Hawker, Papatawai was picked up, and I think that's where getting a little bit around the grey areas. Streams of water, so I did find always, and he's maybe Milton should have been classed as Bruce Ward.
Anywho, we better keep moving on. We're going to mop that up somewhere in the future when we do our review of the community plan.
We're probably suggesting, Your Worship, that we will include wording to reflect reviews of community plans. And those reviews will include that wider definition.
And actually include those areas as well, not just put it in the definitions.
Right. Welcome, ladies, Martin.
Let's move over.
Just so going forward in our wording, so we've taken inclusive community of everything and just putting it as. Thank you.
Sorry, what's the question?
No, it's just we have everything under, you know, we seem to have inclusive community hub and brick.
Oh yes,
so we'll just delete that from all documents.
We will get referencing right with the staff documents moving forward.
Right. So I'm looking at the assumptions in your account.
We're still on reserve management. Still, there were 3 items. Strategic framework.
Oh, yeah.
Reserve management.
Reserve management plan team.
So I think we've pretty well covered this. Again, he's answering questions. And this again just needs to capture work program and integrate it with the work we're doing.
The only thing that's not mentioned in there is certainty around what the program's gonna be, isn't it? Which is what we've just been sorting, right? So we've got a proposed program, haven't we?
Yeah, correct.
And that would need to be amended as a consequence of that program. So you might like to inform the council, that's what we were thinking.
So the proposal from here is to round out that all of the reserve, and this is strictly have a series of RMPs that do include all of the reserves, so that step down. And given that, so they are focused on urban areas, but also there are some further out. Basically, from memory, so the proposal is to do an RMP for the Clinton Ward, Clutha Valley Ward, rural routes, that's sort of everything that's not within Milton, Waihoa, Irish now. So that's the remainder, if you like. Basically, that was sort of wrapped up pretty much everything. There's some reviews as well that were needed. For example, about Clutha one. Later. So, for example, the down in Mount Park. That's the plan.
So we just need to update that. The council is within the document, right? So that's how we reflect that.
Mike, there's a couple of areas, Bull Creek and Waipori Falls. Well, there's issues, there's been many issues there, the reserve management and be the mechanism to look at the issues. Because it's sort of specific in its reserves.
The RMP is the framework through which you can address them without having a really clear foundation about who is responsible for what. Not the actually council got a role here. And then secondly, the activities and the policies that apply within that field. So, so that's when you have that conversation, and that's when you have that discussion with the community. What is it that you want to provide for, if you do or not, and always
Good luck.
Yeah. That's
Right, team, what's everyone's thoughts? Moving on, are we?
So the key assumption, Your Worship, is the one we've deferred, so that's why you.
That's why I can't find it.
We're on to number 4. Which is
Funding submissions.
That's mine.
Yeah, go for it.
So this item basically is a wrap up of items that were carried through from the annual plan into the long-term plan, and some pre-submission requests that you'd be familiar with. And in order to get some direction as to what we might incorporate into our baseline. There's 3 parts to this. The first part, transport. Your Worship, I might ask Chris Pop to look at this.
Welcome, Chris.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Through you, Your Worship. There was item circulated on Monday, a summary sheet of this, attachment 4A. And that actually talks to the detail of this, but this is the summary of those, that paper. It's got 1 slide per element.
So has everyone got it? New footpath, Lowestoft Street. Chris, do you have comment or you question?
No further comment, Your Worship. Happy to take any questions.
Councillor Ben.
The option 3. Are you suggesting you would rip up the residential driveway that already have a footpath paved area in front of them and redo the whole lot, or would you leave, because they take up probably 35% of that road?
Through your worship, we'll have to look at that actual design to see whether the new footpath design will actually be complementary to the existing driveways. We might find that the existing driveways have got the wrong people along them for the footpath.
Okay, so does that price include ripping up the?
It includes everything. Yes.
So doing a whole new footpath,
Doing a whole new 1.5 meter.
but maybe they could stay and you wouldn't have.
I'll be very surprised if they do, because they would have been done in isolation and inevitably, once you put a camera in the footpath, you're going to find it just like.
Can I say I've always found this Leicester Street? It's, because there's a playgroup there, it's slightly different. But I've gone and walked it, and the topography and the way the bank goes over and that. If I took 2 steps back and said, is this the worst footpath in all the district? It's got to be dealt to. It's #1 priority. We have a set of priorities. There's actually the rule of 1 footpath per street. You know, one side of the street has a footpath. And the street's well catered with 2 footpaths. And I'm thinking, in fairness to the entire district, is this the #1 priority? No, it's not. Not by a long shot. Not by an extremely long shot. And consequently, to elevate it to this point, we just need to make a decision. And for me, I've never pushed it because I looked at it, I thought the status quo was a yard and a half ahead of, probably, it would be above the median, far less in the lower quarter. Don't know, we're exhausting more time on it. Councillor Barrett.
But you'd have to agree, Mayor, that the footpath on the other side of the street services no houses. It's a gully, and why it was put there at the question. When people come down from North Balclutha and around that corner and to go to the play centre, that there isn't a footpath. They'd have to cross the street at the main road at State Highway 1, go down that footpath and cross the street back over to use the footpath. I know there is a footpath there, but it seems to be being placed on the wrong side of the street. That's why this has come up, yeah, because the playgrounds on the play centres on the other side.
Your worship, your current policy does allow you the leeway to actually put a second footpath in.
Yeah, there's already 2 there. We've already achieved that. Councillor Bold, Wheeler followed by Luton.
If footpath was built here, I'd ask the Balclutha Ward councillors, then would this give the opportunity, would that get more use, be of more use, and then the footpath on the other side could actually be abandoned?
It's a concrete footpath. You wouldn't abandon it.
Well,
people won't use it. They're complaining because they have to use an unformed footpath rather than cross the road and use a formed one, then cross the road.
when I say abandoned, just no maintenance done.
Oh, yeah, so it's no maintenance, a good footpath on the other side of the road, it's a very good footpath.
Yeah.
Councillor Luton.
Yeah, I'm kind of, well, I would be definitely no maintenance on the other side. It honestly isn't that bad. I mean, I go there basically every other day, drive up around there, and I think they're probably well serviced. But if we're going to put the other one on the other side, we definitely don't maintain what's already there. How far do you go? Only as far as the play centre? That's a proposal. You're not going further on past the play centre?
To your worship, that's correct, it's up to the play centre. We have to be careful with regard to abandoning existing infrastructure. We still have to keep it in a safe and possible condition. So from that perspective, it will still be maintained.
Councillor Payne, followed by Finch.
Thank you, Worship. I'm still processing my thoughts, but I'm actually eliminating option 2 because I mean, the reason these people walk up that road with their pushchairs is because pushchairs on that gravel footpath. That's why they don't want to do it. They're currently walking up the middle of the road with pushchairs and prams or whatever they are, and they don't want to use a stone footpath. No, it's on the left hand side as you go down, and it's gravel and it turns to grass at the bottom. I went and had a look yesterday actually. And so if you were to do the last week, but I just think that would be pointless. And so I'd be favouring either the status quo or option 3 at this stage.
Councillor Finch, followed by Herbert.
So Ellie, when you drive, how many people are using the actual concrete one?
I never see anybody walking.
They walk down
No, I mean, there probably isn't hardly a day I don't go down that street, but I actually never, mind, I will say I'm not there at Play Centre time, so, I'm sure Play Centre time, I don't know how many walk to Play Centre, I don't know.
Councillor
Can I
Howard.
just get my clarification, you know, I don't know the area, this is the one where the person come on the annual plan submission and showed the picture of people walking down the road in wheelchairs with the pushchairs and completely empty footpath.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're
Can
right.
I, staying as it's individual townships pay individual costs. Now, Clinton Ward councils, is that the worst footpath in the town? Well, is that the worst, is that street the worst service for footpath? That's what we've got to consider, yes, but is it the worst? If not, then do the worst.
From a play centre point of view, it would be. And that's why they put the submission in, because they are the people that use it and they know. And so they haven't done it just to spend money or anything, they've done it for a reason.
Councillor Fick.
Do we know the current role of the play centre at the moment, roughly? Is it 10, 20, 30, 40?
Offhand, I wouldn't know. Relatively busy, but the numbers.
Right, we're gonna make a decision now, so start thinking decision.
Well, would it be cheaper to put a pedestrian crossing in, so that people use the concrete footpath and there's a pedestrian crossing across to the Play Centre?
That would be two pedestrian crossings, one at the State Highway one end and one at the play centre. Then you're gonna drive all the motorists crazy.
Through your worship, you're not gonna get a pedestrian crossing and a zebra crossing.
Right.
Won't work, the warrant won't be satisfied, so you might get bulbous curves to make a shorter roadway to cross. But you get physical painted markings, it's gonna be not possible.
Do we have to give directive today, or can we make the suggestion that on the way home or something in the near future, everyone goes up for a look and works it out themselves?
And we find out how many are using the play centre.
Yeah.
One of the issues we've got, Your Worship, which is not elected members' problem at all, just the problem that we have got is that these are things we've found through on the annual plan process.
Yeah.
And we felt the worst thing we could do was say, oh, let's put it in the LTP process after someone has groups have submitted. So the thought process was at least allow those submissions to get some decisions, whether it's included in your LTP or in the sense of actually it's budgeted or not.
I can't make a decision on the workshop, so start.
No, but it's about the direction for budgets.
Yeah, I know, so the direction, I'll go, councillor Catherwood, councillor Grant.
My comment would be without having been to the site and looking at it. Especially the people that did come to the annual plan. The reality is, there is a footpath there. This is how I think about it. There is a footpath there that can be used. If people want to use it, they can use it. There's other parts of our district that have no footpaths. They would love footpath. There's like two options of footpath. So without actually seeing the site, I'm sorry, I'll have to actually, I'll probably stick with status quo and no cost implications.
Councillor Grant, followed by.
I've spent a bit of time up in that area and I've looking at that, and there's quite a few people that do push chairs along there. And there's also there's a lot of people that come up that road, they don't get stuck at that intersection by the bridge. So to have people push chairs either on the road or having to cross that road more than they have to is just increasing the risk that someone's going to get bowled over. Yeah, they will see that scenario.
Councillor Payne, followed by Punch.
It's a question for you, Chris, actually, just, is there another option here? I mean, I'm looking at the footpath when I drove down the other day, they're only this wide, they're not 1.5 metres wide, are they?
Not
the old ones. No, I mean, is there opportunity to make that wider and then you've got one crossing of the road? I mean, I don't know, I'm just exploring the options just to have a wee think about it, because one of the arguments when they came, they said, oh, you can't get two push chairs and they're on the road because of gravel and all sorts of things like that. So just wondered whether there is another option there of just increasing the size of the one on the right hand side of the road. Maybe that might alleviate something, I don't know. Throwing options around.
We wish it was something we can look at, but it's going to come down to funding as well.
That's right, yeah.
And,
yeah.
So you want a directive today, don't you?
Well, yeah,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
decision The directive is around, do you put something in the budget or do you not?
Okay, I want a 1, 2 or a 3, you can see the options there and we'll test it. Realising that you're not from the ward that would pay for it, councillor Finch, what's your directive?
No, I had a question and you
Right.
said yes afterwards. Now I've forgotten what I was gonna say. Oh, has there been any near misses or fatalities that we know of with them crossing the road?
Not that we're aware of.
It's not hugely.
Did you have your hand up, Chris?
Yeah, I did. I guess what I'd say is we are sort of supposed to be encouraging, walking and cycling and all those sort of activities in our district. Yeah. So my thought is that we should perhaps be looking at this. We've had the kindergarten placing it 8% people came in. Probably reasonably convincing case as to why we should look at this. So I would support that. We get funding from Waka Kotahi now, New Zealand, for our
No, you don't for this specific section.
we don't. Okay, I'll just take that one back then. But yeah, I guess I'd perhaps be interested to know what the rates.
Yeah.
65,000. Given rate.
Sentences the directive needed today, and as a Belcluta resident, Belcluta will entirely pick up the cost with no NZTA without any other. The only question I'm asking in my head is this the worst footpath in Belcluta? That hesitation, no, it's not. Not on my priorities. Consequently, does the play group trigger it? I don't know the numbers of the play group. Tend to think that 2 footpaths is doing okay, but I'm looking for some guidance. Team, throw us one and we do a vote. Councillor Luton.
Well, at the early stage of, we know our rates are going to be an issue as we go through this long-term plan, whether it can be put in and we look at it down the track because I would like to see the rates implication for Belclusa as well. So if I was to agree to it, it would be on the condition I actually see the overall rates impact and with probably the position to pull it. If the rates actually figure comes out too high in the end, well, there's some hard questions to be made down the track, and that's my biggest concern. We're really early in this whole process of coming to a figure for our rates, and that's why I'm being cautious. I'm actually, this long-term plan, looking at the must-haves rather than the nice would be good to have. So for this long-term plan, I'm very much a must-have.
Councillor Barron.
We put a swing in the Christie Street playground for one child to play on for $30,000. This will affect multiple children and cost double that, 65,000. I'll do it once, do it right, and do it now because it won't get cheaper in the future.
Can I get someone to give me an option so that we can get a decision made? Councillor Graham.
And I'll second that.
So we're going to move in a second for option 3. Have we had enough discussion to put it to the vote?
But it's not, we can't make a decision.
No,
We can only give it-
No, but we can give a direct, we're going to give direction. How do we give direction on what option?
Yeah, and whether you just have an item like Councillor Graham said, and whether you need a second or not, may not. We've always done hand vote around whether something's in. It's always what you've done, your worship, and that was always fine for a direction as to whether we put things in budgets.
We're going to break the deadlock somehow. So we're going to vote option 3 as our preferred option. All those in favour, say aye.
Right.
Those against? No. No, hold on, I'm absolutely out. All those in favour, please raise your hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Those against, please raise your hands.
I'm against to the extent I want to see the rates impact. So
Yeah, so you're against.
I'm
Ali, you're either hand up or hand down. That's discussion in the middle of the vote. All those against, please raise your hands, and Ellie, this time, just raise your hand. Sorry, we've got to be clear there, we cannot be having discussion in the middle of the vote. So 7, so you, hold on, now we're numbering.
Well, it's either status quo or there's gonna be the minimum option.
Someone else give me another option to break the deadline, please.
I'm happy to put it in with the proviso that it is actually looked at as a final, so it's not in as an absolute given, it's in to be revisited when the rates impact can be ascertained. Because we don't know what the rates impact for Balclutha is on that 65,000.
Well, see, we should, no, so, you know, we know what 1% of rates is. It's $310,000 for 1% rate, because it's $31.5 million in rates revenue for this current year. But the issue will be, you will need to, and we're going to have to next week, go through the budgets, and you're going to decide to make calls. So I can probably guarantee you that the bigger issue is the waters, the 3 waters related costs, which will mean anything else pales into insignificance. And the question will be, what do we do as a consequence of that? Some of the things around, suggestions around the edges won't make any real material difference to the significance of what that is.
No.
And we're going to.
I've got to say, because that's real political. If we don't worry about the pennies, we're going to get blitzed.
Yeah.
And we've got an obligation to consider every single item that's coming through. This is specifically about Cluta ones. It's not the 300,000. I'm thinking this 2,000, 60,000 put on a loan. So it's not going to be much, but it's still imperative for each and every decision. Because we're looking at 20% next year, and our rate pass note, yeah, but you didn't really give rats about 4, could have made it 16. We'll get blitzed. Don't.
So the footpath rate is a separate portion of your rate unit. So surely you can have a calculation of the effect of the Balclutha ratepayer of what $65,000 is. Right here, right now. Yeah. We must have an idea of how the footpath rate.
2,000 rateable units. That's, and then you put it on a loan.
So
it's not much.
So 2,000. What are we talking about?
Oh, no calculations.
Okay.
You've made a call. Easy enough. I mean,
$1.50.
I don't.
So
if you have a viewpoint that you're going to say everything you decide today will be subject to something else tomorrow, that's not going to work for anything. Because it doesn't give any direction. We might as well go home. So what I'm saying is, you will get that opportunity, right? You might revisit it on Thursday and say bring it back in. But at the moment, my understanding is the vote was it's out. Doesn't mean to say that further submissions can't arise, or you can't make a different decision on Thursday.
So while that option was out, Steve, it still leaves someone to move and another person can give it a shove for option. Which one's with that? 1 and 3 or 1 and 2 or whatever it was.
so, hang on.
We can do that.
Oh yeah, but I was assuming that there wasn't any real interest in option 2 that would go to a vote. But do it.
I'll put it. Whatever the one is. Which one's status quo?
One.
Yeah.
I'll move that we stick with status quo. The second. Councillor Finn. Do we have any discussion? Better do it with hands this time. All those in favour of option 1, raise your hands, please.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
Those against, please.
1, 2, 3. We've got the direction.
Got there on the street. On to the next one.
Thank you, Bishop. Harrington, Gilmar Street corner in Lawrence. That's a relatively straightforward one. We really have started work with the operations team to just make that corner a little bit easy, trafficable, a little bit more visibility through it. And then progressively, we will just put a very short little unsealed little pathway inside the corner. As I said in the report, we've got a few anomalies there with the legal road reserve and road being well at alignment. But the bonus is we only inside of the corner, so we can at least make the difference
You happy?
Yeah.
Local ward councillors happy? Is that the direction?
Yeah.
Any counter proposal? Right, on to, where were we, Surat Bay? Right, down there, yep, sorry, as you were.
Unlike the Lowestoft Street one, this is quite a significant item, but I made in the report quite clear that there's two different funding mechanisms for the Curvin Channel and the actual footpath. If you want, if the Lawrence community is serious about having that infrastructure, then it will be a two-pronged approach of doing the Curvin Channel construction first as a low-cost, low-risk project, which Whakapētai will fund at 67%. And then any new footpaths would be a potential targeted rate, which we just discussed previously. The only drawback for this is that our budget for 24-27 for low cost low risk projects is fully committed. It's only 4 projects, as we reported the service delivery committee last week or before. So from that perspective, any improvements there, it's only going to be done around about early 2027, well, mid 2027. It's part of the legal entry for program development.
So what was it going to cost, Chris?
I deliberately didn't put any cost down because it's a significant amount of work for the surveys to be done for us to go and look at the stormwater issues associated with it. And until such time we've done that work, we will have a relatively better idea of the actual true costing. So that's why we're working towards 27, 34 actually. Next year will be around to bring about.
So consequently, whatever we say now, because of its hundreds of thousands.
It's getting pushed out irrespective. All I want directive on is whether there's an appetite from the Lawrence community to actually have again that footpath at their own cost potential. Yeah, council choose to have that rating mechanism to stay as a target.
Councillor Martin.
Can I just add to the conversation here? And I think the footpath is not the concern. Your worship is there. It's the stormwater is the biggest concern there. As worship come up when the flooding happened, it's not the first time the flooding's happened as a consequence of a weather event. Even the thought of pushing it out to the 27th is just no go in my eyes. We've got serious flooding issues on the main street. We were told at the community board back in May after the CDC staff went and investigated that they had engineers involved. They were going to come back to us with a plan on how we can resolve this issue of the flooding on the main street. I've been all in favour of getting the water issue, the stormwater sorted before you get the footpaths sorted. And leaving it till 2027 that's just not on. That's pathetic. Like we've got a serious flooding issue in Ross Place, and as a consequence, all the stormwater comes into Colonsay Street. And we've been told as a community board that the council had engineers involved and we're drawing a plan up. So why are we making this decision without seeing a plan, engineer's plan?
And I'm nervous with when we start hearing of engineers and plans and drawings, and the figure tends to be significant.
It's got to be fixed.
Yeah, that's pushing it out to 2027 isn't going to resolve the flooding issues in Ross Place. And we're getting near that time of year again.
So what is our is the plan locked in for low cost, low risk? Well, it has to go to Whakapētai.
Through your worship, the plan for this year for 2024-27 coming to basically having six months left of the year. We're going through contract awards now that will potentially overcommit their budget, or potentially the projects that are going to get cancelled might have funding coming available. If that funding does come available, then we'll have to go to Whakapētai and ask specific permission whether that could be diverted to any other project. At this point in time, I'll have to catch up with the operations team, see what they have committed to today. I only acted on their submission and the options that is available. And at this point in time, that's the earliest that I can actually deal with. Actually getting 67% funding for that work is 27-28. If, as I said, there's surplus funding this side of 30 June, we'll bring it back to council as we normally do to look at an update of the low cost low risk projects and make a decision.
I'm really nervous about making or giving a directive here without knowing the cost. Are we able to wait till the costs come in and make a decision around the council without going out for the consultation? So we don't need to do that, do we, Chris? You could get the figures, we could get all the information, you bring it as a report to council and we make the decision on the day.
Your worship, I deliberately didn't put the cost in because it's the principle that I wanted to at least have accepted, and as Councillor Martin has raised the issue that it's more pressing for them as a community to deal with this side of 30 June than it is for us to start on 30 June 2027. We'll have to take that on board, work on that as a first principle, and then therefore I don't need any directive at this point in time further because it falls outside of the LTP that we're trying to put into place now, and therefore it doesn't impact on 24/27. Does impact on 27/30 should we not be able to do anything, as I said, in this current LTP or annual plan. Whilst we are committed for 24/27, basically $3 million over the 3 years. That budget, as I said, was fully committed only with 4 projects. We'll have to still work through those projects and see what the final outcome of those are going to be to be defined on the table continues. There's still risk in all of that as well.
What are we doing, team?
So, excuse me, your worship. So that's good. So where are we at with the report, the engineer's report? Has it actually started or what's actually happened? Because we've asked repeatedly at community board meetings what's going on. We don't get any update on it.
Your worship, I'm not privy to their side of what has been discussed with the operations team. I'll refer to them and see what things are.
So I think that'll be a good starting point before we make any decision. Where are we at with this?
We fully appreciate it, your worship, but at the same time, they don't have funding to go and make any difference, so they can investigate as much as they want. We still need to find the funding for the project.
But that's my question, is where is the investigation at this point? Because we're being told it is happening.
Yeah.
So is it or isn't it happening? So would that not be a good starting point?
So there's too many bits of the jigsaw puzzle for me to make a decision. Like,
No decision.
no, to give directive.
We've got the message, your worship, that there is a priority around the stormwater side of things. And obviously the problem is as priorities come up and you've got locked in programs with Waka Kotahi that are done well in advance of things, you have that conflict, there will be. And the question will be where we go with that conflict. But we understand that, and we will have a look at what that means. And we don't need the direction here because that's what we're going to have to go away and look at with existing programs and what we do around that priority. So if we have to come back to you because there's an option to reprioritise, we will come back to you because of that option, or we will come back and advise what the other problem is around that. And that's so we don't need, we don't need anything further. We've achieved what we need to achieve.
But what have we achieved? Because one councillor said something and I haven't heard. I'd like to support Jock, but until I know the cost, until I know the what.
We're not making any changes to budgets. What we've understood is we need to bring further information back dealing with the priority related issues relative to the program. Any changes to program that we might be able to do has to be done through you anyway.
Councillor Kennedy, followed by Kate.
I'm quite happy with the district. It's a flooding option. Not worrying about footpaths at this stage. Is there more funding because of flooding?
Not necessarily.
Can we tap into something there?
Not as far as I'm aware. The one issue that we've got to look at as part of the overall investigation is there a stormwater system that requires to be installed over and above the Kirkland Channel? That becomes a stormwater related Lawrence, and that's one of the reasons that I haven't put any costings on this at this point in time. I can deal with the Kirkland Channel. I can deal with it for the past. And as I said, 2 different funding mechanisms. The third issue there is from the investigations, if there is a significant stormwater system that needs to be underground to take water anywhere other than through the surface on the Kirkland Channel, then that's a different matter that we need to deal with. We're hopeful that we don't have to, because obviously that would be very expensive. We're hopeful that a road runoff through a Kirkland Channel, Water Creek, will be sufficient to deal with it. So at this point in time, I'll follow through with the operations team, any work that they may have done today. They, as I said, haven't got budgets to make any difference with any new infrastructure at this point in time. We will look, as the year progresses still, we will look at that budget area where there's any funding that will become available. We will look at least with what has been happening with the operations team, take anything on board what they've got, and look at whether we can get a relatively good estimate for a curb and channel option only for that section of wood. Then I know what we're doing.
Because the direction being sought, we've had the direction from the community board. So you're saying it's the operations team, so in the operations, we've been told at community board level that work is underway, with the engineers and devising plans. So my question, once again, is where are we at with it? I think we're putting the horse before the cart before the horse here.
For your worship, as I indicated, I will find that information. But irrespective of what the outcome of that is, you do not have a dollar to spend on.
So we just put up with flooding you're proposing through to 2027 on the main street.
As I take it, we're going to come back and we will have an
Reprioritize. Well, it is a priority. It was brought to everyone's attention at Christmas last year. We're no further ahead.
We'll go to Councillor Payne and then we've come to a stall on it, as I said.
Yeah, look, I hear the budget constraints, I hear the prioritization, and is that our only contingency position we've got? I mean, can we borrow money? What can we do is there any other position, Steve, that we can?
Oh, well, you can do anything you like.
This is important to Lawrence.
You can do anything you like if you don't want subsidy from Whakatane.
Right.
So it just means that
that's the implication,
right? So, you know, you can use reserves, emergency reserves, you know, whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
You have options to do that. The problem we have is that the Whakakotahi, you know, program of works is done well in advance, locks in on things, and they give us money for it. And there's a lot of rules around how you can play with that, right? So that's the problem. But
there's no other contingency.
Yeah, if you had, I mean, you have an emergency fund. Yeah. In there. But the one that always gets us, you know, quite rightly, is we always begrudgingly rightly say, well, if I could get some money at 67%, you know, instead of the rate payers, why wouldn't we in that sense? And that's always fair, right? Yeah. But you can still do whatever you need to do if you had to.
Right, I'm going to go to Dane and then I'm going to leave it. Yeah. And then I'm going to go to Bruce and we'll probably leave it.
So first, so the four projects you're talking about, the 3 million, they are locked in. Those three projects, effective is 3 million.
Through your worship, effectively they are locked in. We had the first time, with budget submissions this time around, all councils had to make their actual list of projects, because it used to be just a bucket of money that everybody says, yep, I'll give $10 to $15 million, and there was no auditing done on actually where this money went. They've now said project specific, not just even project specific. You have to look at how your project aligns with the government policies and regulation.
And of those four projects, 3 million, would you believe that there's a project that is not creating more damage or flooding to the township? Reprioritise it all?
Project one is proposed dual laning of the Kotanga Highway. Your second highest priority, well, not highest priority, but the second possibly one is your cycle to Finnegan. There's $1 million.
Yeah.
They're very bad.
And you've got to look at the continuation of the LEDs.
Continuation of?
The LED installations. We've got street lighting.
LED upgrades.
Sorry, Don, I'm getting real valve downstairs. So I'm going to have to.
The last one is just a continuation of the speed and the science by school.
But I tell you,
$3 million.
Excuse me, I'm going to have to pull around. So that everyone knows what we're doing, we've got a movable object 1030 called asset, no dollars, sorry, please, called asset management plans that people are coming in on, and we're going to have it no matter what. So we've got another 7 minutes for this. You can see how many we're doing, and we're labouring on a point that we've already said we're gonna hold over, or not hold over, but we're certainly not able to come to a direction today. Yeah, I know.
We're actually having a health. We're learning about some infrastructure projects.
Yeah.
Council, they don't know about attractive Finnegan Pond.
Yeah.
People
I
just bring it
have
up,
fair
you
call,
know,
mate. I get it.
We've got a new councillor here that's got a flooding issue in this township. Like, this is okay, like, if it takes time and we need to do another workshop, we need to do another workshop.
That's what I'm trying to push for, Dana, is that we're going to have to, we're stuck for this. And we're dwelling on this one subject, and yet we can't move on until we get finances and additional information from the report.
And that's what we're
As I
doing,
said,
getting additional information.
yeah, but not today. So we have to wait until we get that additional information for the discussion to move on. Councillor Volwell, sorry too, Donna, but if we labour on this one, I've got 6 minutes now to do another 5 of them.
No,
which
I'll
is a
leave it.
possibility.
Well, your worship, you and I have talked, and
Yeah.
I said we're not proceeding with these past 10-15. They are all relating to submissions from a previous plan. We can always bring it into council, the council decisions early next year. So that's what we'll do. And also we can take on board what's been said already, so that's fine.
So we've been whispering, you can see why I'm cutting it down and moving on, because we're already heading to another date to try and do this properly. We will move, we've got 5 minutes for Surat. Oh, hold on, is that a question, Simon? I don't want to cull discussion, but yeah, well, we have to for today, because we're coming back to do it properly at another time. We will have a go at Surat Bay though.
What's in it?
Councillor Grant.
I was just gonna say, surely that last one was still water, not grading. Wasting a lot of time. Yes, sir, right.
I'll comment on Sarah. Well, there's no passion. It's like improvements and fantastic. Do start for taking that on.
Anyone got a counter proposal? We're moving out of Surat Bay.
Yep.
And going to Lullaby.
It's out of budgets already, so. No brainer.
To which Lullaby Lane's in essence operations matter. They're dealing with it from a safety perspective, as we said, a very easy solution for them. They lose sight of the embankment. Put a pin down curb blocks that you see on some of the unsealed roads with reflectors on them. Just put a edge marker post instead of a reflector, and that will give you at least visibility.
Okay, everyone happy there?
Yeah.
We're moving along, okay, now we won't open the Water Street, Kotankana. Councillor Grant.
Right, for start, how many urban streets are unsealed in the district? How many basically heavy traffic bypasses are unsealed in the district? Imagine if George Street was unsealed and all that dust blowing onto the new heart, gee, that'd be a shame. This was high on the priority list of our place. And generally, Kai didn't ask for much, and what they have got, all their fingers out and done it. This is sort of hamstring a bit of growth in Kai as well, because there's, I don't know whether it's housing down there. Not so much on Water Street, but the street going down. This was actually approved years ago. It went to a workshop, and I couldn't make it to the workshop. I think it's the one on the only the 12 years that I did this. But the councillor wanted to actually talk everybody else out of it so they could get some ceiling done. So this should have been done probably 8 or 9 years ago.
Can I follow up on that and say that the Water Street and the finger roads down to it, that wider, because there's the swimming pool and where they're gonna make it a halfway. There's the one with the new house that I don't know what the name of the road is, but it was about three, St. Catherine? St. Catherine, so it was sort of more than just Water Street, wasn't it? Because you sold that and you still doing, and the more greater priority I thought was on the St. Catherine's and the swimming pool road. Yeah, I don't know where the priority sits.
Your worship, those side roads had what we call fishtail seal extensions, so all roads in Eastern Street had the intersection sealed back down as the then minor safety improvement project. I believe there's one off the street that has been actually missed, so that's why you've got that section on Full Street, there's only basically going halfway. I had a lengthy discussion with Joyce Beck last night with regard to this matter. They had a meeting last night and she just needed an update. Their priority point is Water Street between Ramsey and Port. That's the biggest dust suppression issue, dust issue. I've recommended to her that they need to talk again to operations division because there's a pure dust suppression option, which is the options put in place of the oiling option. What we're dealing with is to try and get the points to get Waka Kotai 65 or 67% financial assistance. We've done the assessment on those points. What we're proposing is that whatever happens with this year's projects, that might not be done equal with cost, we will revamp their current priority list, take the carry forward projects into that. We will add Water Street as individual sections to that for council's decision in the future. We've only got $900,000 in year one of the draft LTP to do these type of projects. And so we will bring back to council what the priority projects will have to be out of that $900,000.
Right, what are we doing? We're just noting?
Yeah.
You happy with that?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna, just so that everyone knows, where do we go from here? How do we get back to talking about these?
We'll put an end to that, your worship. The papers will bring back to again in a different fashion to a council meeting. It'll end up having to be after Christmas, but it's can be written in a way that you make decision or give direction on things in that process. Because we're still, doing the LTP process. We're just dealing with these submissions from a previous annual plan, so we can still make those decisions early next year. So that's what we'll do rather than muck up the timing of this thing.
Right, so I'm gonna be back here in Donna at 10:30. Please join me if you wish.
So we're on to asset management.
So we'll restart again. Welcome back, everyone. The first of the. Oh, yeah, we're gonna get the recording going, but the first is the asset management plan. Well, the first one that we're looking at is infrastructure strategy. Is that right, Keith? I am now. Yeah. And is that you?
Through you, worship, we've got Vaughan Crowther, and we might bring Vaughan up on the screen.
Got a Vaughan, how are you going?
Kia ora, good morning, everyone. I'm well. How's everyone else?
Yeah, we're good.
Excuse me, your worship, just, technology is not working. Now it is.
Right, okay then everyone, infrastructure strategy. Once again, can't stress enough, this is the concrete that's sitting around our feet. Pete, is it you that I go to?
If you would, hand over to Vaughan, I'd suggest, who's,
Okay, Vaughan, the floor is yours. Welcome, appreciate you assisting us today.
Thank you, your worship, and good morning,
Vaughan,
everybody.
you haven't got a volume on that, have you, or what?
Can you hear me okay?
Beauty.
Okay, yeah, good morning, everyone. Vaughan Crowther, and I'm sure you're familiar who I am now, helping out developing the infrastructure strategy and the activity management plans. Today's session is the, I suppose, the culmination of all the work and the official endorsement of everything we've done. You're probably aware we've got some conditions there around financial information of our planned expenditure. Obviously, we've got a workshop next week, so we've also got time and space to develop. Excuse me, I have to turn my phone off. Sorry about that. Gosh, my apologies. And also noting that we've got a big assumption around our co-funders or co-investors, Waka Kotahi, and the approval or not of the draft application that's been submitted tomorrow. So next slide, thanks. Just wanted to quickly run through, well, obviously what we'll be covering today, where we're at, re-highlight the key challenges and opportunities we're trying to manage over the long term. We've got some big assumptions we've made, and we've had to, in the relatively dynamic situation we're all in. And also I'll touch on our priorities for the infrastructure strategy for the next 30 years. We've got some significant decisions that will require consultation, and there's two in particular, which we'll get to. And just to iterate, it's not new information that we have not presented to the council already. So it's largely endorsement and confirmation of the work we've done to date. Next slide. Activities we're covering today: infrastructure strategy initially, and transportation, solid waste, community activities, and open spaces, pools and libraries. Of importance, again, is Three Waters aspects. We do have an expectation to include Three Waters expenditure in the early years of the LTP. Last time I presented was prior to the coalition negotiations, and dynamic has changed yet again. So a lot of work has been done into ensuring we've got a good long-term plan, activity management plan for Three Waters available. So we'll be discussing that at the end of this presentation. So if I could just go back through the process that we've followed to get to this point. So there was a lot of work early on establishing and agreeing the strategic direction, largely unchanged for a lot of the activities. We'll talk about that shortly with the key principles we're following for investment in infrastructure. We've done some work around ensuring that our current service delivery or our current performance is being delivered, and if it hasn't or is not, why is that? We've done some analysis on future demand for activities. So the large driver being population growth. So some population projections were developed and adopted by council earlier in the year. We've included that information as a key, one of our key assumptions or key evidence bases, and understanding what the future may look like and what we may need. There's also things like demographics which come into it, which is a significant contributor to a lot of our proposed way forward. And then arguably the biggest contributor to our decision making going forward is the state of our infrastructure or the state of our assets. Like many other councils, a lot of the infrastructure is in well beyond middle age now. So we're in a realm like others where we're having to make sure we're investing the right amount to avoid rapid deterioration, which creates additional maintenance and failures and other big decisions. So that's been one of the key drivers. From that, we've just established some key risks which we've touched on. I'll revisit them again. Putting together programs of work to mitigate those risks, workshopping with council and key decision makers on options and our preferred direction. And then lastly, which we'll be covering more in the ensuing weeks, is the funding impacts before finalising. So that's an overview of our process to date. So we're sitting in those last two now. Any questions so far before I carry on?
The one I have, Vaughan, and I did all last night reading through. We're going through this, but in every case, the financials and funding impacts weren't there. And that's it is the component for me to do consideration on. So we agreed to the asset management plan, we agreed to additional items, and yet we're running blind on what the implication is. If we were to go yes to it, and then, as you say, at a later date, we get the financials, are we able to pull the handbrake on because it's a dollars year?
Yes, in short, yes. It's probably specific, which maybe Peter and Steve can go into, but for me, this is an endorsement of as much as the process that we've gone through, and we've come to the point where we've got some preferred direction and programs that we need to invest in to address some of the key risks we've got. We will need to revisit that in the situation where we're breaching our financial strategy limits as well. So, in short answer, yes, it's a big assumption and condition that we need to work on. However, we also need to recognise we've got to keep moving forward.
Yep.
Anything else you want to add to Peter or Steve on that?
Just refer to the endorsement in principle relating to it's subject to financial information in the 25th as well.
So that would be the only way I would be prepared to I guess agree to this, is that we actually still get another cut at it once the financial information is inserted, because I actually feel this document is useless without the financial information. So that's my comment, and I'm not I get it's the base of the document. It's to me, it's like a draft of the document, the process, it's outlined the process and everything else. But because it hasn't got the financials attached to it, it's with a lot of, I just I'm not comfortable in approving it as such, because you can't approve something blind.
No, I just make the point it's subject to, and it's not useless because you've gone through a process where you've looked at asset management principles and direction around a whole raft of activities, which will be very informative when you get down to the nuts and bolts of the dollars. And should you decide to, want to change things, you will have done it in the knowledge previously of all the work you've done around, well, what principle are you going to change as a consequence? Or, I've got recognition of that, and I make this decision. So I know everybody wants dollars attached to things, but it's always cart before horse, and we don't get to do the dollars until we know what's in the draft asset management plans, for example, to flow in, and anything else that has to flow in. And so you do see it, but it's two-stage. Work you've done now, the work you do today, just to clarify things, right, will help you next week when we see the dollars and you say, I need to make some changes or whatever. You're not doing it from a blank sheet.
The fear I have, Steve, is that we come back in February and we're getting told, hey, look, no, you can't go back and make your decision.
You're doing it next week, you would.
So the assumptions are based on the fact that if the dollars don't add up, we can go back.
You're doing it next week, your worship, right? We've got, we put aside a whole day because we know that actually there's going to be a big issue we have to work our way through, and we're going to make ourselves as staff available with our background supporting information, so you can say what you need to change if you're going to go down a change process. And that's next week. And so, you know, you've got the documents, and that's all we're asking.
Yep, no, that's all that we're establishing is we can go back. That's good.
Yeah. So just continuing that, I agree with the sentiment wholeheartedly. It's a challenging situation. The way I've attempted to follow this process is to ensure, I always say, it's to ensure the right debate. And there's three legs to all this. There's the service level we provide, there's the cost of providing that, and last there's the risk. What happens if either of these two variables change, we change risk. I've attempted to ensure that risks are communicated as well as possible. In the instance, well, you know, when next week comes, the process that has been followed will enable council to have that conversation. I suppose that's a key thing. And maybe for this session, we put that lens on to say, do we have enough, or do you have enough to have that good debate when we need to?
Yep.
So, yeah. Anyway, next slide. So if we go into the infrastructure strategy now. So the strategy's largely been developed from the last two iterations, giving it a 30-year document. Change in strategic direction would only come in a significant situation. A lot of the drivers of what we do are largely regulatory or legislative. We've got other variables such as wanting to enable development and growth, which is a big driver of what we do as well. But the strategy as we have it is largely similar to the previous two iterations for consistency, with variations for context, particularly political context of three waters and local government reform that we've been going through. So the document itself, its objective is, I've always said we've got a legislative need, but for closer, given that you've got such a strong and good strategy in living and working, that's coupled to that to say this is almost our prospectus, and it's also defining what we want for our standard of living going forward. So that's how it's been writ. We've got needs around ensuring that it complies with the legislation, and that is we need to make sure we can demonstrate what expenditure is going to be used for replacing what we've got, for improving standard of living or service levels, and also funding growth. So that's to be done with financials. In terms of scope, obviously Three Waters is excluded from this document now. We've also brought in community halls, because we see that that's going to go through some, well, that's essentially, we'll cover that shortly, but the document itself, largely transportation, solid waste, housing, and halls. So let's go to the next slide.
I just wonder, interrupt, I just wonder, thinking about time, the feeling I'm getting, team, is that the councillors have got a lot of questions brewing about the asset management plans, and they can recall us, and that, I just wonder, it might be more, a better use of time to just get straight into quality time with councillors on their issues with the AMP. Does that make sense?
Just before we do that, I'm clear on infrastructure. I've got writing all through here, but infrastructure strategy, it was a clear bill of health. Is that where we are? Anyone got any pressing questions? On this particular one, I wasn't losing any sleep on it.
Yep. Okay. Great. So we can quickly run through those. Yep. All good.
Your worship, are you suggesting we go on to the AMPS and the second one?
Yeah.
The bridge program one, is it?
Yeah, we will get. That's the first one, solid waste. See, am I right? The first one, solid waste.
Yeah, you are.
Yeah.
So solid waste, so some significant expenditure planned here. Council's been brought up to speed with this in previous workshops, and particularly most recent one with the waste minimisation plan. We've got some, I suppose, some significant assumptions around this, particularly around the consenting of Mount Kiwi, and also around timings of needs to implement waste minimisation legislation, as well as new legislation around reducing emissions for Climate Response Act. There is still work to be done on the scoping and cost estimation of the needs for Mount Kiwi, and obviously of being of significance, there's going to be a need to go to consultation with the community on this. However, that will be in the first year of the LTP, so basically in 24-25. There are the other key proposals are to expand waste collection both in terms of scope of coverage, but also the type of waste to be collected and to be recovered to reduce waste to landfill. It's going to create additional need for funding, both capital and ongoing operational expenditure. So we've also got some clear targets there that waste minimisation will be working towards over the next 6 to 7 years, and those are within your waste minimisation plan. Are there any specific questions on solid waste?
Yeah, if I could please, there's a few things happening up at Mount Kiwi that concern me, and I didn't see them covered in the asset management plan. Firstly, around solid waste with what was the farmer up Ben Hart? Stuart Murray. Stuart Murray stopped taking solid waste. Since then, Mount Kiwi, I think there's something like we did 3 years of filling in last year. We're filling up Mount Kiwi way quicker than we are. And I thought that it was something like in 2027 we had to do glass recycling. And yet I saw on page 2 that we are consulting to do glass recycling. I'm wondering where we're going out and taking an extra step if we don't have to, when we're filling the place up as quick as, because our single biggest asset that we own is Mount Kiwi. It's the single biggest exposure to risk. And the two options are we get a consent or we go to slope down or something, whatever that other option was. I don't like having our biggest asset, flick of a coin, sound where the regional council's going to do where the regional council's going to give us a consent or not. And if we don't need to do, if it's not law that we have to do glass recycling, why will we go head first into another cost in this environment with Mount Kiwi tenuously poised at the moment? Just didn't seem to cover the risks, and there's huge risks there.
Okay. So it's probably something I'm hoping that we've got either Jerry there or to answer that specifically, because it's a bit more specific. What I can answer at this stage, Your Worship. Jerry's about the activity management plan. Is he there or is he on leave?
For you, Your Worship, I might be able to inform some of this. Maybe Donna can assist. My understanding, and you might recall, Council had a conversation 4 weeks ago about the waste minimisation strategy. And in that, the question is not so much whether you need waste recycling, that's mandated at this point in time. The question is how you go about implementing it in terms of, there was a conversation about sort of the level of service provided, the number of recycling bins, etc. And that becomes the question for the community and their appetite for that.
It's this glass.
Yes,
glass. Yeah. Is it a legal requirement or are we just going to do it?
On the current legislation, as I understand, it's a legal requirement that it has to be in place from the second 6 months of the last 6 months of the third year of the long-term plan.
Right, that takes it away. Right. Consequently, why are we consulting on something we have to do?
Because there's a question, question that was discussed at the last council meeting, I think it was a council member workshop. Well, I've got confused. The question was, how much recycling do you want? Because there's economies of scale in terms of geographic extent, and there's economies of scale in terms of whether you include green waste or not. I think the direction at the time, so it must have been a workshop, was that you would want to consult on the most economical approach, which was slightly more, I think, in the order of $500 plus or minus, relative to a lesser approach, which becomes more expensive per capita, but leaves some people out. So that's where the consultation question was going at that time.
Any further questions, councillors?
Well, yeah, I'll just make a comment of a reminder. So I understood that. We as a council we understood that there would be a 4-bin system. We'll get that minimisation. We got that reduction in the waste. We changed our red to the bin, our solid waste. That was reduced in size. So that's how we were going to achieve these targets. It was affecting ratepayers of urban areas over 1,000 rand. But if we all went in, it's cheaper for all of that district. That's what I understood.
That's my
But we also, well, and I asked the question of wanting to make sure that our smaller communities that have the opportunity to sort themselves out locally using a transfer. For example, I work at a transfer station. As our community, we could sort our own problems out as far as bottle recycling. I understood where we're at.
So
giving us an opportunity is smaller than 1,000, not signing up to the $500.
I'm not across the detail at that level, but we'll take that on notice and make sure that we come back to that. I also might mention that the next week we'll be talking about the detail of all the consultation questions. And that will be an opportunity to tweak that if we need.
Right, Vaughan, we're hitting the road again.
Any further questions on that? No, we can carry on. Okay, if not, we can click through to next slide. I've touched on those key assumptions too. Obviously, as Peter's indicated, there's more discussion to come on this in the following week. Transportation.
Everyone's finished with landfill? What was it? Solid waste? Yep, transport, done.
Thank you. Transportation. I can see Chris walking into the room there. So transportation, again, we've got some challenging issues. If you go to the first slide. The common theme here is the cost inflation, which is occurring, as I've indicated, previous workshops occurring across the country. This thief of purchasing power. That's the key driver of risk that we see here, and in that it challenges our ability to sustain the current quantities of work for the budgets we have. So that's the balancing feature. Chris has done some really good work on understanding what that will mean in terms of the priority areas, and we've got two key issues there, being the bridge program, the ability to sustain the bridge program we have, and also maintaining an appropriate level of service, given that we have a risk to a reduction in the quantities of work that we can do. These are items that have been presented to council. Our proposed approach is to consult with the community on options to raise the amount of funding into reserves for the bridge program, and also to look to increase our funding to sustain the maintenance expenditure in our mainly in our CF pavement maintenance. That is deemed significant to consult. This one here. So over the slide, we've got the options that we'll be consulting on for the bridge program. Next slide. Oh, nope, sorry, this is where Chris comes in. Apologies. Chris, did you want to jump in here and run through these slides?
Just looking at the slides, and I was involved in looking at what was going to be said in there. Just thinking ahead to the time we've got available to deal with the principles, and I just wonder whether we, there's the real issue around the consultation questions and the substance of the AMP, and really probably thinking that we might just confine ourselves to that aspect of it rather than go through this. And I know just done a lot of work on this, but I'm just thinking maybe focus on the actual key bits around what is the consultation questions, which is based on workshops before. We've had this before, and it's reflected in the AMP and any questions associated with the AMP, because otherwise I just don't think we can get through this.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Steve. The only comment I will make is their presentation different from the rest. Of course, we've got to follow the business case approach to activity management planning to get our things on the 67% public demand. That was a definite procedure, which actually is a different.
Assuming an AMP has been built on that basis, so
that's a permanent.
So yes, I would really like us to do whatever is the minimum necessary from that procedural basis to allow the councillors to ask anything about the AMP, and we can then get through them.
So I think one of the, I agree, I think given this is probably going to be the most significant impact, I believe, it is worthwhile to go through each options and confirm that council are happy with those and the consultation question. The key assumptions, obviously, there was some on the bridges, there was some work that was to be done on and confirming a lot of the lives that we had projected, which I understand Chris has done, and that is confirmed as accurate. Other key assumptions there is obviously change of government. There may be some shift in strategic direction. However, given that the large majority of expenditure planned is for maintenance and operations and renewal, typically, my professional opinion, this may not change direction. The other key thing is the timing of the approval of the program, but also the fact that you've had an increase in your financial assistance rate since the June workshop where Bridges was presented, and it's a positive shift in that you've received an increase in your financial assistance rate. So the options that were presented at the time have been adjusted to reflect that change in assistance rate. Anything you want to add there, Chris? Is that all good? Go to the next slide. Yeah, and obviously a couple of assumptions around service levels and procurement. Yeah, the procurement one's probably been the most challenging one for most activities in recent years, which we have talked about or a lot already. Next slide. So these are the consultation questions, and in essence, we're attempting to demonstrate that, like I said earlier, the cost, the service level, and the risk trade-off, where we've presented a continuum of options to say we can maintain status quo, and the remaining risks will be relatively high. And what that means in real terms is we're going to have to either push rates up, go into more debt, just to sustain the bridge replacement program that we've committed to. We can also prioritise the bridges we replace. So essentially that's dropping the quantum of work, and which means not all bridges will be replaced in the timing that was anticipated or given the level of service that we anticipated. And then the other end of the spectrum for options is we fully fund all the need and to sustain the bridge program. A really important context here is you've got those large bridges due in the 10 to 15 year window. We want to make sure we've got sufficient reserves to ensure that they can be done. So and typically the middle option is a balance of the two. We were saying yeah, can we get ourselves a sufficient balance of risk?
So you're wanting us to give a preferred option today out of those three?
Well, I suppose it's a question to say, typically the preferred option will be option 2, but we say it's conditional to obviously understand the funding expectation and community input as well. So
I wouldn't be happy just to roll off with option 2 without discussing it in this environment.
Yeah. So whether this is the environment to discuss that or not, I think possibly the following week, once we understand financials, is a better time to do that, but open to discussion.
What are we doing? Are we to do these options today, or do we hold it off till next week when there's the finance?
No, again, I think your previous workshops have discussed these to get to the middle option 2, as far as I understand. It doesn't stop you, like all these items would be on the table next week, but this was again just proceeding through what has previously been discussed to get to what the AMP currently shows.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
So therefore the opportunity to consider option 1, 2 and 3 doesn't exist.
Well, it will do. I mean, we're only reflecting what you'd already previously debated and discussed for us to write it to the AMP, and that's how it's been reflected in terms of that. But you do have that opportunity next week if you're wanting to revise the preferred options and things like that. Anything's on the table if you're wanting to look at changes to programs.
Well, when you look at that, would you support an increase in rates? How much? I don't know. Yes, I do know I don't. So if we're looking at a 25% rate increase, living.
Well, why don't we leave the consultation questions bit out, because we know that we're going to come back on consultation questions. That's fair enough. So we know we have to ask ourselves what they will be next week. So we can hold that off.
I can make your worship at the current rate expenditure and the current rate of depreciation funding, it comes to a crunch in 17 So you have the option.
Well, people putting food on their plates.
No, as in not being able to fund your
if we've got a huge rate rise, I will look at it in a totally different light than a low rate rise. And that's so the consultation questions can't come in and talk about
I appreciate it. What I want to say is at the same time that you've already given directive to go to Waka Kotahi with the $22 million budget per random roughly. Now that includes these bridge renewals. The issue is our share of it, 33%. How are we going to do that? That is the question that needs to answer, because we really don't want to go to Waka Kotahi and give back 67% where we've got a viable project. But that is, again, I appreciate it is bottom line that is going to hurt in the pocket, and that is what
once we know what the overall rates is, there's no way I'm walking blindly into that.
Bridges is one part of it. It could be the levels of service that we also agree to. We want to go at the high end of what the regional contract was in. I fully agree. Once we know what the bottom line is, then you can start, as I said, on a live spreadsheet, start plugging out numbers and say what's the bottom line.
The directive we gave way back, it's only crystallizing now, and we still haven't got the final figure what we're looking at.
Although just remember, transportation is a little bit different, because transportation was always stuck that we needed to give direction to the budgets to go to Waka Kotahi, which you can never guarantee what you're going to end up getting. But the risk was always going to be Waka Kotahi might actually give us what we asked for, and that has a funding risk associated.
To your worship, there's a very point that Steve raised is we had a regional transport, road efficiency group meeting last week, and Waka Kotahi spoke at that. And at this point in time, they would do like they've done in the past, they would give us interim funding for July, August. We might know what we're getting for operations maintenance renewals by the end of August, which well out of kilter with our new process again. And then the improvement projects, which for us is at $3 million from the low cost low risk, that is going to be well down the line before we can actually get work with it as we improve. And we've already been told that operations maintenance renewals is under significant stress.
Yeah. But I'm just stressing once again, there's no way as we enter the most inflationary period for a generation that we are locked and loaded on 30-year plan being done over 10-year, renewal being brought forward. It's too dangerous.
So like also, as I mentioned, plans and life document, we will amend as we move forward and we get certainty.
Yeah.
Is it? Is it the question, using the words increase in rates? You've got to sustain your infrastructure. Training is so important. If it's, if we've got to achieve option 2, there is no option. There has to be an increase. Is it actually the consultation question of the public understanding with the inflationary pressures? There has to be an increase. There has to be.
It's the discussion.
You can't not spend money on your infrastructure. It's highly important infrastructure.
Don't want it all to go backwards so that we can't.
But the question again is, we're bringing a 30-year work program down to 10. Is the right time to do that? Next week, when we set the figure, you might be looking at it in an entirely different way.
But to defer would be reckless.
No, we're only going back to status quo.
We are also in a position where we have sweated the asset so much, we have to be very diligent about how we go about this.
Yep. I just want all options on the table, Ken. The door's getting shut.
My annual worship, the thematic bridges that we're replacing was a very strong directive from audit from what they time.
Yep.
Yeah.
Understand. You need to get on top of it.
Yep.
Yeah.
There was a push for the high productivity motor vehicles and you need to plus on this. We should do a bit of the low end and improve the maximum.
Door stays open.
What else? What's next on? Is there more on transportation?
That's basically it's through worship. My biggest thing at the end of the day is just to give it in principle a tick for the draft transportation activity management plan. That's been submitted to Wakaputai. We have to do that as part of the funding submission. As I said, it is a live document. There are areas that needs further improvement on it, but our focus was to deal with the business case where we're asking the nuts and bolts of Wakaputai. In conduct that it was really impact in place of place.
Can I just check before we finish, Chris? Like if there's subsequent changes being proposed as because of next week and that sort of thing, it's still within the realms of being able to make changes to the transportation AMP.
I can make the transportation AMP set a live document, we can make changes as and when required. If it flows through to what the time, then we'll have to just advise them, but they basically this week, next week, they'll be back in Wellington. This week we're getting on slice of the time.
So we just want to check then before we move on, was there any issues or questions associated with the transportation AMP that hasn't been addressed or you want to change? Yeah, okay. So we've got that part done, Chris, and then we'll still got to deal with the financing tomorrow, next week. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. We'll move on to the next activity, community housing.
Yeah.
Okay, so as indicated in previous discussions, we've got some key issues of an aging asset base, obviously inflation pressures too, and I think of significance too, of new significance being growing demand for affordable housing. That's largely within our activity management plans. We've done an indicative projection of that demand based on assumptions around demographic changes over time. Your waiting list has grown in the last 3 to 5 years. We're starting to see wait times increase as well. So we've got some consultation questions around that on how we manage it. So again, some a range of options were presented to establish a direction. The next slide in previous workshops. And the key thing was maintaining a targeted maintenance program that is affordable. We're very conscious that there is a need to maintain affordable rents, and also a preference to that the current policy of being cost neutral, and what I mean by that is rents covering cost, to be maintained, and also ways and means to address this growing demand. So option 3 was the preferred way forward or preferred direction, obviously conditional to consultation and conditional to more specifics around rates impact. There was some indicative or preliminary cost impacts that were done as part of the development of this activity management plan. So we don't go into this fully blind in terms of financial impacts. In terms of consultation questions, we've got a few there. Essentially, the first ones are focusing largely on the maintenance aspects, to say we do carry some risk by doing targeted maintenance and maintaining affordability, where there may be situations where we need to do more, and so that's why we want to consult with the community on that. And secondly, looking at a means of managing that growing demand through non-asset based solutions, and that's a technical term to say, do we look at ways of means testing of people that use community housing? So it's prioritising a bit more on need. So that was the key areas of consultation. Any questions or discussion?
Questions, Dane?
I think we have to do means testing, because without knowing how many who are in that can actually afford to pay other rates elsewhere, we're never ever going to get our waiting list down either without building a lot more of the community housings, and it's really, really important. So many people out there that are homeless and stuff, it's one we need to really consider first.
Can I just, looking around the staff, not sure whether I've helped a few people fill out the forms and that, and they want to know they want to know everything, including income, assets, and that. So consequently, we are already going there. And as I took it, you're not allowed to write yourself into or out of your rights and obligations under the Residential Tenancy Act. Are we able to push harder than what we're pushing at the moment?
This question to start.
Well, I mean, the council has an ability to have a policy on who they will provide housing to. There's a different issue around saying, does that mean we shift people out that are already in there? That's a different issue. But yeah, it's more about means testing, or if that's a policy, for accepting people into the house.
Isn't asking their income and their assets of as much as we need to know? I know that the issue was brought up from a decision that was made in the past, but it's been working a whole lot better in recent times without going to that extent.
Well, your worship, the idea of means testing might be, because there's no parameter to it. The idea of means testing was dealing with demand. So, if there's this huge waiting list of people, then means testing with some parameters might allow you to reduce your demand. And so we're not suggesting parameters. The policy, the principle is just saying, do you consider means testing as a method of dealing with demand? If we're not building more houses, waiting lists are just going to increase. So that's the principle.
Shall follow by Kenny.
Chief. The trouble with community housing, well, it's not a trouble. The thing is, the people that need the community housing are usually our older set, or they are individual. Okay, there's a lot of homes out there that people can rent, but we don't want to encourage a single person to rent a big 3-bedroom home because we're trying to encourage more families in. I think the issue is that we don't have enough. People can't afford to buy homes today. This is where this is coming from. So as a council, I mean, I know we've looked at it before and we've got a bit here about it. I think it is time that if we want to help our communities, that we start putting in more health in the areas that it's needed.
So consequently, that runs at a tangent to a preferred option that we were going to defer all new housing for 3 years.
Well, you defer it, you just defer to, oh, look, we've got all these lovely cabins. One place we could put in more cabins.
The housing doesn't include the cabin.
Good though.
So I'll try and hold that thought, Michelle, and go to Dane.
My question would be is, does this, we around the table, we've always agreed that our community housing is cost neutral to the ratepayer. So my question is, does this question even need to be asked, this consultation? Either of them.
Yeah.
Because we as a council around the table agreed that it's going to be cost neutral by the ratepayers in the district. And not to subsidise. So I don't know the need for the question.
Through your worship, one of the issues is that the way to make it cost neutral and affordable was to reduce the maintenance, which is what that preferred option 3 is. Because the moment you do the rest of the maintenance, you're increasing the costs, and cost neutral means increased rent, and that was an issue for affordability for our residents, and that's why. But discuss that. That's why you're in a preferred option 3.
But we understand that, and I also understand. I understand that they are the cheapest rents. You don't rent a private 1-bedroom home. You're paying twice as much as our community. They are affordable, even with the maintenance that's required. They're still the cheapest in the district.
Yeah. I actually suggested they had that question last time, just because it is only a consultation question, and just see the community or the ratepayer are happy to maybe subsidise community housing. Or maybe they won't, but let them
ask the question. Someone else had their hand up. Someone.
Through the chair, I look at inflation is running at X amount of percent, and you've got in here no increase, affordable rents, no increase. Now, most of the wages the government adjusts each year for inflation. But why can't the rent be adjusted to give a wee bit more fat in the system and build some new houses? Like we're trying to save money in every area. Well, that's a question I have.
I just wonder, through you, Vaughan, whether we're just reading it the wrong way. You would expect rent to go up with inflation, as you suggest. And I just wonder the way we're reading it should be, we're not changing it to market rents. It's affordable rent. So if you were changing it, it would be an increase, right? So that's how I would read it. Might be tricky to read, but that's how I would read that statement.
Correct. Sorry, there's the presupposition or assumption that affordable rents is understood, and that is below market rents now. If I can just understand the councillor's question, saying essentially, why aren't we passing through inflation costs also? If I understood that correctly, I anticipate that may occur as well. However, the challenges here we're looking at is we've got essentially a backlog of supply for to meet demand, and we've got a backlog of key maintenance as well that needs to be addressed, which is going to consume largely any of the existing income that we get from rent. So yes, we can look at adjusting for inflation. However, the significance of these other two issues over the longer term is far greater.
Right, I'll head to Bruce just with the knowledge that we've got 9 minutes to go and
Yep.
5 other topics.
Just to reply to councillor Mackey's thing, I don't think beneficiaries do get adjusted annually.
Yes, I do.
Yeah, they're now benchmarked, aren't they? And, well, 100-day plan, we're taking that away as well.
That's what I said.
Otherwise, we generally, is there any changes to the AMP being suggested?
Right, with no changes, we should move on, but
Okay, conscious of time. So the remaining ones, we're going through them in terms of reducing significance. Let's get the 3 orders at the back, so I'll get through these as quick as I can. Community halls. So in terms of, in context of any change from previous years, no change to current policy. Divestment will continue, conditional to engagement, obviously with the respective core committees.
yeah, Vaughan, I've got clear sheets on community halls. Can I just check? Oh, no, Ellie has got one. All right, yeah.
Okay. So in terms of the significant issues or decisions that were presented, the key change is is setting a time frame of divestment of 3 years. So funding will still be made available as it has previously, with the intention of getting some specific divestment programs with each hall committee. Public consultation was not deemed necessary because the decision was the continuation of an existing policy.
Yeah, I'll go to Ellie for the question. Vaughan.
Have to bear with me, I might have a few. 4.3, the preferred program, the divestment program and the maintenance funding. There's nothing in there, but I actually got to go back to the beginning and what we do, and you've got there are 11 council-owned community halls within the district, plus the Balclutha Town Hall. That actually needs taken out. Now this was a bit of old hat. Sorry to be almost rude, but it was just an old policy taken over, really. Yes. So key assumptions. And then, yeah, enabling delivery. Well, that was the same for the previous one too. There's nothing in that. So when does that get put in? So I kind of felt it was a wee bit of a half-finished report.
Yeah, it is. Correct.
Sorry, I'm being critical because I was put quite a lot of red marks over it. Sorry, I just found it.
That's okay.
Up to speed, and we shouldn't be approving this report without it getting sorted.
Yeah, no, acknowledge that. Yes, that's the same with a few of them where we've got sections that are incomplete, particularly from the financial section onwards when we get those financials done and we approve that program. So the enabling delivery element is to say once we've approved what we've got to do, how will that be done, and documenting that both in terms of what we've got now with teams and resources. And then if we intend to procure or contract out services, so that's a bit more specific, that section.
I'll just check, fundamentally, other than the fact that it needs updating because it looks like we didn't do a decent, like haven't looked at it thoroughly.
Sorry, it just looks like a cut and paste of last time. It's not up to, sorry, it's just not up to speed for consultation for the next 10 years. It's an old asset management plan pulled up and just chucked in.
Given that we're not really doing any major changes in terms of, the investment policies being proposed to be the same, I'm assuming then that there's no fundamental issue with the policy, what we discussed in terms of the workshops. And if we did a more thorough job of updating it, as opposed to cut and pasting it, then other than that, the principles are okay.
Yeah.
Then we can
I'd quite like to have another look at it really, and I found, the minutes from the whole committee's interesting.
But in principle, we're moving forward. I'll quickly go to Dane and we move to the next one.
Just on those, on the options and the preferred way forward, and we've got highlighted option 2. Just want to clarify on that funding maintenance budget increase to reflect recent inflation 25%. Are you talking 25% per annum over a 3-year period? Current maintenance budget
No, over the 3-year period.
in total from today.
Yeah, from.
And we're going to achieve a 30K per annum reduction in the last LTP. So,
Sorry, I missed that last question.
just on the in costs and the option 2, you've got 70K per annum in funding and decrease of 30K per annum from the last LTP. Is it a juggle? Are we achieving a 25% increase in maintenance?
Oh, yeah, apologies. Yeah. So largely due to the fact we've got some halls that have been, I understand, received funding from the Provincial Growth Fund, where a lot of work was done and they don't need as much maintenance now. So sorry, I can clarify that. And essentially that's saying the scope of halls that need funding is reduced as a result of that. So yeah, that's probably something in there.
But can I take it, guys, considering what Ellie was saying, Dane's asked this question, there's nothing else with regards to community halls? We're moving on.
Cool.
So-
Community libraries.
Go through, like, we've all read those bits there.
Yeah.
Do you think it's safe if we just roll to the questions? Is everyone comfortable to roll to the questions? Because I've got a few.
Okay. Just for libraries. Yep.
Just then we do the asset management plan. So yeah, okay, we're doing that. That's our asset management plans. They are the assets that we're doing up in the future. And when I was reading the community libraries, we've got upgrades to 3 libraries and an outreach program being introduced that I didn't think we'd agree to.
I do agree with that comment.
So we say yes to this. There's 3 libraries getting done up and an additional service to everything we're doing now in a time when we're getting ravaged by inflation and absolutely shredded.
Can I just make the outreach program that was discussed? I remember when we discussed it because Clifford Development had the Heartland program where they've got a vehicle now that is available, and I can remember that being discussed, and it was not supposed to be in there.
We didn't agree.
We didn't agree to it.
So what do we do with an asset management and for the engine?
We need to workshop it again.
No, I think the issue was that there was a potential, there needed to be discussion between Clifford Development and library on that matter. And so there was neither a no or a yes, okay, to that, because the information hadn't come back. So what we'd have to do is just put that matter aside to have further discussion over, because we need to know whether it's going to be in or out, right? And you're not going to be able to debate that fully because you haven't got all the, you'd have to go back to the paper and do that side of it. If you in general don't agree with that thing without having further information about it.
So Steve, there was 3 libraries that were to be done up. I saw that there was minor earthquake, but the rest would, to my way of thinking, discretionary. We put them in the asset management and that could be huge dollars.
So I mean, when you're talking about buildings, which are assets, right, and buildings fall down, or if you don't maintain them, or they're already in a state of certain condition, you have to, over the 10 to 30-year plan, put in, renewals or replacement for things.
So yeah, fully appreciate that, but I've seen no engineer's report. I've seen no indication that those buildings are at imminent risk. There was a indication that there was earthquake-prone minor repairs need to be done in a period of rampant inflation in 3 waters. If it doesn't need to be done, I think it's a good old time to defer.
These aren't, as you said, these aren't decisions, Your Worship. There was, I mean, it's a bit unfortunate because there was workshops on this. I don't think you were there for this one, and that side of it, where the matters were, we debated a number of matters around asset management planning and that program of work. And so the issue will be, yes, there's actual, there is information about the standard and condition of the asset, requiring things. In fact, there's more information that we received more recently, but it didn't impact on the provision, because these are provisions. And I think you'll also find that it's not intended that I don't think we put it in the first 3 years, the initial provision for that. It may be that actually you get condition assessments that come in that these things have to be advanced quicker, and the whole idea is the provision side of it. But there can't be a situation that you have a major asset like your libraries, and you haven't made provision for renewal and replacement within a 10 to 30 year plan. Your suggestion would be that in a 10-year plan you have zero. It doesn't work.
No, when a report comes in to indicate that it's needed, then we do it without that report.
I'm
looking around the faces, and if you can remember it, tell me. I can't remember.
It's got a business case will be developed in year 1.
Yeah.
So, and improvements within the next 3 to 5 years. So, I mean, a business case within year 1, that's like next year.
Yes, so you can't have a plan, like, I'm just saying from an asset perspective, whether it's pipes or whether it's buildings, it's not correct that you have zero provision for replacement and renewal. What we've suggested is there needs to be further work done, year 1. There's provision within a 10-year plan, because you've got to have something.
What I'm saying is that an asset management plan, if we've got in our asset management plan that in year 1 we get the report done, but we'll line ourselves up 3 libraries to be reconditioned and 1 outreach program, but I don't know what's happening. Once it's in the asset management plan, we're done.
They get every 3 years, you would show.
So just for further context, I also think previously what was agreed was, some works to ensure, key replacements and renewals was being done. The key change here is the shift in scope of library services over time, and essentially ensuring that if there is money to be spent on libraries, it's being spent correctly. So that initial community services strategy is essentially saying, what are we doing with our money? What's the best use of it in the library space, given that we've probably got some significant expenditure on our libraries in the next 10 years. The business case is to say, once we know our strategy, is it worthwhile replacing like for like, or actually spending money on upgrading to reflect that, or modernising of library services? We're still looking at strengthening libraries for earthquake prone. In terms of condition of it, that work is underway now. There is actually work going on right now to look at the latest condition of these libraries, and unfortunately that's the reality of the timing that we had. So hopefully it provides some more context.
I also think, just to be clear, we haven't had an AMP for libraries, and that's correct, right? So we've always looked at it and said, actually, there's been a black hole around those buildings. Now that's a risk, because we haven't done proper, assessments and proper planning or renewal replacements of those facilities. And this is the first AMP. And what's the idea of an AMP? Is to understand these things and to plan appropriately for the future.
Correct. I was going to say, these are the first AMPs for most of them. Halls, housing, halls, libraries.
Once I see a report that needs it, it's fine. Hey, look, Vaughan, have we got any other questions for Vaughan specifically on community libraries? Because we've done our time and we're going to roll the other 3 into next Thursday. No more questions. Do you have anything? Do you have anything to add, Vaughan, for community libraries before we pull a handbrake on?
No, that's all, Your Worship. Thank you for your time.
Kia ora, thank you very much for that, Vaughan. Can you just we do the next presentation that time afterwards? Are we going to fill that time in with us, or are we taking it? We're just going to blow the time in?
No, Your Worship. We're meeting your schedule, and if there is time. If there's time afterwards, we'll start and come back and we can carry on.
We're able to get one back.
Continue with this.
I'm not sure I'm sure we can get more back.
Okay, team, we'll have a 2-minute break and then we'll head into future local government. Cheers.
2-minute break. This is more important than the government to me.